Amen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to U.S. Smith High School. We would like to start by thanking everyone who showed up. I and many other students have worked hard to make this event possible. I would now like to recognize some of the work that our students have done. For the past few weeks, we being about 50 U.S. Smith ninth grade students have met twice a week to establish the way this event will be run. We've made flyers and banners that were distributed throughout the school and the town. We have made speeches like this one. We created the majority of the questions for tonight and reached out to businesses who donated coupons and done much more. 3 students, including myself, even went to both College Democrat and College Republican meetings at UConn where we promoted the event.
We would also like to give a special thanks to our moderators, Dorothy Zhang, Emily Gilardo, Oswald Tang, Lila Omafali, and Juliana Perez, for taking on this responsibility that is necessary for this debate to function. Organizing this has been a difficult task, and we are truly grateful for all the parents who have been supportive to us by helping with transportation during the planning process and for being here tonight. All of this work is for something much bigger than this single event, and that is the idea of democracy and representation. We are extremely fortunate to live in a country where we have power inside our government. This debate is just one of the ways we as a people can connect and help with our government. Lastly, we would like to thank all of our sponsors, Price Chopper, Gansett Wraps, Dogling Cafe, Sweet Emotions, and Hot Energy. Thank you all for coming. Let's get started. At this point, we would like to turn the microphone over to Emily Gilardo, who will introduce the candidates and make a few final comments before the debate begins.
Hello. Good evening, folks. Before we begin, we'd like to introduce the candidates themselves. To my right, we have Representative Haddad, and to my left, we have Mr. Sargent. I'd like to start with the debate structure. Each candidate will be asked the same question and will be given 90 seconds to respond. After each candidate has responded, they will receive an extra 30 seconds to make any final statements or refute their opponent. Out of respect to the candidates, I would like to ask those of you in the audience to keep your phones off and, of course, refrain from talking, applauding, or taking pictures. Please enjoy the rest of the debate. To start, the candidates will give their opening remarks.
This is a coin flip, I guess.
Yeah.
You want to do that really quickly, or you want to do that? Do a quick coin flip? so you'll.
Okay. So Representative Haddad will go second. That means Mr. Sargent will start with opening remarks.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to the town of Mansfield and E.O. Smith High School. I just want to start off by thanking this great school for hosting tonight's debate. I also want to thank Representative Haddad for being here and engaging in what the students said in their opening remarks as a quintessential part of democracy, the free flow and exchange of ideas. And I'm honored to be standing on this stage right now. And I want to thank Mr. Goldman and his students particularly for taking countless days, hours, time out of their lives to help plan this event. My name is Mark Sargent. I'm running for state representative here in the town of Mansfield for several reasons. As a public servant, individuals need to know that what they do is what's better for society as a whole by the actions that they take in facilitating a community of open engagement and strong leadership. During my time on the town council and as former student body president of the University of Connecticut, I have fostered growth positively day in and day out with university officials, residents within the town, and UConn students. And what now I hope to do is take those experiences that I've held there and bring it to Hartford, where we need much needed change and true leadership in a time where our economy is hurting. So what I hope to do is earn each of your vote tonight. And while we have this conversation, I look forward to having an honest debate with Greg on this stage. And thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Sargent. Representative Haddad?
Yes, I'd like to also thank the students and Mr. Goldman and Mr. Needleworker who worked very hard, I think, to put this debate together with the help of the League of Women Voters. We've always had a debate and when we run for local offices here in Mansfield. And it's always been done because there's been people willing to step up to help organize it. And so the work that you guys have done is really a service to everybody in Mansfield, and I appreciate it. I'd also like to thank Mark as well for not just appearing at this debate tonight, but also for running. And, running for office is a difficult task. It's challenging at times. And anybody who's willing to sort of put themselves on their name on the ballot, I think deserves credit and recognition for that. And so my name is Greg Haddad. I am the state representative from the 54th District. I've had the pleasure of doing that for the last 6 years. Prior to that, I was the deputy mayor in Mansfield for 11 years. I served for 2 years on our Planning and Zoning Commission before that. I've also been involved in the community. I was on the board of directors of the Mansfield Discovery Depot Daycare for a number of years when I was on the town council. Served as a member of the board of directors of the Mansfield Downtown Partnership. And currently serve as the vice chair of the Access Agency, which is our local community action poverty fighting nonprofit in this region. I mention all of these things not because I think that experience is really what's most important in these times. I think what's really important is to make sure that you have somebody who shares your values. In my 20 years of working in Mansfield, I've been working very hard to listen first and foremost to people in my community. This is a great community, and the values I think that we share here as folks who live in Mansfield, I think are significant. I see my time is up, but I hope that we'll have a chance to talk about issues today as well, and I look forward to it.
Thank you. Okay, so the first question will be asked by Dorothy Gang, and it's going to go to Mark Sargent. So, in June of this year, Ricardo Perez and Emilio Diaz were in a stolen car and were pursued by the Hartford police. When they were arrested, a dash cam in one of the police cars appears to show Hartford police officers kicking and or stomping on one of the suspects. Both suspects were hospitalized. However, the police report claims that Perez had been violently struggling and the use of a stun gun had no effect, so they had to resort to physical methods. Do you believe that this was an instance of police brutality, and is police brutality something that should be addressed in our state legislature?
That's a great question. Thank you. Absolutely. So what we're seeing throughout this country, particularly here in the state of Connecticut, is we're seeing a movement of individuals on both sides of the aisle who are concerned with the level of force that are used in scenarios with police officers. I think what we need to do is promote a culture and a community that strikes a balance. You know, we have a rule of law and a legal system for a reason. And we have to make sure that those laws are executed. However, those laws need to be executed properly, and no misuse of force is not something that we can tolerate. So what the state legislature has done in the past session, I believe, is making strides to allow for body cameras to be more readily available within the community, and I think that's a step in the right direction. But I think more needs to be done with members of the community, particularly minority members of the community who are facing this issue. You know, we have a town right next to us, town of Wyndham with Willimantic right next to us that has a large percentage of minorities, and I think engaging individuals who are so close to us, these are our neighbors. We have to be able to work with them to make sure that this issue is solved in a candid way, because issues that when one side is saying another thing and you heard it totally different in a police report, there's obviously miscommunication at that point. So I would like to work hard at our state legislature to make sure that we put forth the rule of law, but in order to do that, we have to work together as a community.
Thank you. Representative Haddad?
Yes, Mr. Sargent is correct. The General Assembly has worked to address this issue by setting aside some funding for local police departments to purchase body cameras for police officers. And I think that is an important step. It adds to accountability for both police officers and members of the community, and provides the records, I think, that we need to ensure that that when there are instances like this, that we can do an investigation that will yield an accurate result. Even more important, I think that the move towards community policing and to making sure that the police, the separation between the police and the community, is as small as possible. Is really what we ought to be doing proactively to make sure that our police officers are aware of the folks in the community and are familiar with them, and the people in the community know that they can approach the police supports as well. That kind of cooperation, I think, will resolve a lot of these issues. But it is very important, I think, for us to make sure, as a policy-making body in Hartford, to make sure that we are supporting not just the police officers, but also people in the community as we work very hard to get to the bottom of these very difficult issues.
Thank you. The next question is going to Lila. Oh yeah, sorry, I completely forgot.
No,
Go ahead.
I just want to add, you know, here in the town of Mansfield, we have a unique relationship where obviously we have the University of Connecticut that has quite a substantial police force. And we also have resident state troopers here in the town of Mansfield. So making sure the relationship between the state troopers within the town and the university works well together. Obviously, a large substantial group or demographic of our population is the University of Connecticut students. So working with the UConn police force is paramount to making sure that our community is safe.
Thank you.
I agree with Mark on that as well. For a number of years, since I'm sure it's continued, and you've been on the council, when I was on the council, we worked very hard to ensure that the jurisdictional issues that sometimes occur between the state police and the local, and the UConn police are broken down so that we can have more cooperation. There are a lot of nuisance calls in Mansfield that need to be addressed, and they can be addressed, not just with a robust state police force in Mansfield, but also by the university, who I think has an obligation to help make sure that we're policing neighborhoods, particularly close to the university as well.
Thank you. Now we move on to the next question. And the question will go to Representative Haddad first.
In Connecticut, physically assaulting, threatening, or stalking someone is illegal. But according to Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence, between July 1st, 2014 and June 30th, 2015, there were 41,446 reported violences in Connecticut. If elected, what steps would you take to help protect those victims and prevent any more abuses across the state? And how will you make sure those laws are enforced?
Sure. I think this is another area where I think we can do more in terms of training for police officers to make sure that when they respond to instances of domestic violence, that they are taking the appropriate action. I think there is an institutional bias. I think that is sometimes present in police departments that says that these issues are not important. And I think that we need to make sure that all police officers take these complaints very seriously. I'm very proud to say that the Connecticut Coalition Against Domestic Violence just recently named me one of the 100 leaders in Connecticut that have done the most to address issues of domestic violence. I think that was primarily based on work that we did here in Mansfield with my colleague, May Flexer, to have a more adequate response to sexual assault that occurs on college campuses. But I think that when it comes to domestic violence, it's, these are oftentimes sad cases. One of the other things that we did just recently, a law that I very strongly support, although it was a bit controversial, was passing a law that said that when there are temporary restraining orders are issued in instances of domestic violence, that the police will have the right and the responsibility to remove the firearms, any firearms that are registered in those addresses, and that helps keep people safe as well. So I think we've been taking a lot of action, and I plan to continue to do that.
Thank you. Vice Sergeant?
During the budget adjustment process, the party, unfortunately, in power that we had in Hartford actually cut funding to rape crisis, domestic violence, crime centers, and traumatic body and mental illness. So those are things that we simply can't be cutting. Government doesn't always spend funds, and some of these funds are not what we should be cutting right now. We obviously have a severe issue of mental illness in this country, and I think mental illness and domestic violence are not mutually exclusive. What we can do as individuals, I think, is work together and educate our community, work with our brothers, our sisters, and our family members to make sure that we raise individuals who know how to respect each other, specifically respecting women in the home. And I think what we can do in the legislature is create an avenue so that that's a welcoming conversation.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
Only just to add again that the bill that we established that helps remove firearms from those instances where there are reports of domestic violence and there's a temporary restraining order issued, I think is a very significant step, and it's one that I hope that will serve as a model for legislation across the country. These are very dangerous times when there are reports of domestic violence that are serious enough to warrant a temporary restraining order. And removing the firearms from those households, I think is really just a sane and sensible step. I'm pleased to have been part of that effort.
Thank you. Do you have any last words?
I'm ready for the next topic.
All right. So the next question we will ask, and it will go to Vice Sergeant.
Many families own one or more guns, not only for hunting but for protection as well. Are you for or against stronger gun control, and how would you use your ideas to prevent tragedies involving guns like Sandy Hook shooting in 2012?
So if I heard that properly, the issue is obviously gun control. And this is a very hot button issue across the country, not only in the state of Connecticut, particularly in our state, because we had the horrible incident in Newtown. What's important to me is that we have sensible gun control. So that's what's going on currently with our existing laws. But any further steps to restrict the Second Amendment is not something that I will be supporting if I'm elected to the state legislature. People kill people, not guns. And we have to make sure that what I want to support, and something that is not necessarily popular in the Republican Party, is background checks. I think that's a good step to help with our mental illness, which is a huge problem. Obviously, there were some mental illness connections with the shooter in Sandy Hook. And we need to take the right steps to make sure that mental illness is the forefront of this issue. Gun control is not the answer to this problem. We actually see areas throughout the country where there are higher gun rates, higher gun ownerships, and less violent crime with the guns. And crime rates throughout the country, for the most part, minus our inner city areas here in Connecticut, have actually gone down. The answer is not more gun control. The answer is enforcing our existing laws and really focusing on mental illness, which is the true problem in this tragedy.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything?
Yes, well, the fact of the matter is that the 10 states with the strongest gun control laws, the violent use of those firearms is 3.5 times lower than the states with the least restrictive gun control laws. And that's been demonstrated time and time again by a number of very well-established studies. But look, I'm proud of the fact that the state of Connecticut has the strongest gun control laws in the nation. I voted for the legislation just after Sandy Hook that banned additional assault rifles and began to restrict the use of high-capacity magazines. These are the tools that, when put in the wrong hands, can cause extraordinary amounts of devastation, like what we saw at Sandy Hook. And they're entirely preventable through, I think, a reasonable set of restrictions that say that those militarized weapons, the ones that really aren't about protecting your home or hunting, but really militarized weapons, don't belong in the hands of civilians. I support, additionally, something we've been working for very hard, an additional restriction that says that if you're a gun owner and you lose your gun or it somehow goes missing from your home, that you're required to report that. Missing and stolen guns are oftentimes land in the hands of criminals, and it's important for police officers to understand and our police force to understand when those things occur. And so that seems a reasonable addition that we can make to our gun control laws.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
I think I respectfully disagree with our state representative. You're looking at areas in Hartford and Bridgeport, and the violent crime rates with the use of guns have actually gone up over these past several years. And those areas are both controlled heavily by one party. So I don't think the answer is more stricter gun control. It simply doesn't work. And the idea that militarized weapons is such a subjective term. There's no scientific evidence to distinguish what's a militarized weapon versus an assault weapon. It's the person who's holding the weapon. We have stabbings in the UK, and handguns are banned for individuals in the UK. People who want to commit crimes are committing crimes. So we have to go to the source of the problem, and that's the individual.
Thank you. Any last words?
Yes, very sadly, I would say that I spoke to the parents who lost their children at Sandy Hook, and I can tell you that they will tell you that militarized weapons are extraordinarily devastating. The havoc that was doled out at Sandy Hook was total and complete. And those poor kids who were the subject of that massacre suffered in particular because of the speed of the bullets leaving the weapons and engaging the weapons. So the weapons do make a difference, and we can prevent them from getting going.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to the next question. That'll go to Representative Haddad. Juliana.
Recently, Thomas Mokasha, a Connecticut Superior Court judge, issued a ruling ordering the state legislature to come up with a plan to close the academic achievement gap between school districts with varying budgets within 180 days. How do you think we should go about closing the gap, or should it not be considered an issue of focus?
No, I think Judge Mokasha did us a great service by issuing the ruling that he did. That lawsuit had been winding its way through our court system for the better part of 11 years. And it addressed very particularly the way that the state provides funding to individual communities to help with education. When our budget took a downturn after the economic downturn in 2008, the state began to hold the same formula steady. And so rather than using a formula to distribute education aid, we started writing in the dollar amounts. This is a practice that started before I arrived at the General Assembly. As a result, over time, there are some communities right now that are getting just a fraction of what they ought to be getting. And there are some towns that are getting several times over the amount that they ought to be getting in terms of education. That was done to make sure that municipalities knew what they were going to receive and that they could budget for their school system appropriately. But over time, it's led to a system that's really unfair to a lot of communities. I don't think it's a terribly significant for Mansfield. We're right about where we ought to be. But for communities like Wyndham and Hartford and Waterbury, They are severely underfunded, while there are wealthier communities in Fairfield County that are overfunded. And we can do better than that. Moving on.
Thank you. Mr. Sargent?
Education, I would like to say, is the great equalizer. Whether we have it in the home or in our classroom, I think the people of Connecticut, and specifically the people of Mansfield, are better off when we have a strong, robust education system. Having said that, we're obviously facing strong forces at our state level to cut very important services, and education is not something that I think I'd be willing to really negotiate on. What I have issue with, unfortunately, at the state legislature, is we're creating another layer of bureaucracy. Some of the proposals that were put on by the current party in control have been to add an additional layer that would not necessarily trickle down to our students and our teachers, the individuals who need the resources the most. So what I hope to do is work, I think here in the town of Mansfield, we spend roughly around $17,000 per student, and look towards how we can address the 21st century issues. We're seeing, unfortunately, more and more people leave the state. We're seeing more and more people leave this town. Our enrollment rates are going down year after year, and yet we're still faced with some increases. So I think we need to find a way where we can balance our funds and prioritize our students more than anything. And we need to focus on our dollars here, especially at E.O. Smith, where we have a regional school with 2 other towns. We have to make sure that we take the right steps to ensure that the students get the dollars and not the bureaucracies.
Thank you. Mr. Sargent?
Yeah, I think the state of Connecticut, just in general, over-relies far too much on the property tax to fund education. In local budgets across Connecticut, roughly 75% of the expenditures go directly to the schools. And towns are restricted in the way that we can, taxpayers money almost exclusively to the property tax. And that has to change as well. We started to do that this past year when, again, Representative Fletcher and I, Representative Orange, changed the way the state will provide communities with funding for lost property taxes to the state property. That will bring an extra $2.5 to $3 million a year to Mansfield. That'll help pull down properties and pay for our schools. That's progress.
Thank you. Any last words?
I want us to be cautious because when we continue to push the levels of government up and up, the efficiency levels don't continue to go up. Our dollars are best spent at the local town level. I serve on the town council right now, and I went through my budgetary process, and I saw the importance of where these dollars are going. And if we continue to push these dollars onto other regional areas and then to the state level, we're going to run into a lot of inefficiencies. So I think our dollars are best spent at the local level, and here, especially in Region 19 with our other regional schools. So I think that's where our dollars are best spent.
Thank you. Our next question is going to Mr. Sargent and Glenn. Many students can be called up on parties late at night, disturbing the peace to which Mansfield residents have the right. Quiet hours in Mansfield begin at 9 p.m. on weekdays and 11 p.m. on weekends. In what ways will we prevent parties from exceeding their given time limit and bring back quiet to the disturbed residents?
So this is a unique question for me particularly because I recently graduated from the University of Connecticut in 2015. I served as student body president there, and during my time, I was a external affairs chair where I worked directly with the town. Now as a town resident and a member of the town council, I serve on the rental ad hoc enforcement committee. What we're seeing, I think, is a missed opportunity. I love my university, but at the state legislature level, I will not be a yes man for UConn. I will not be rubber stamping a lot of the things that UConn has been putting forth. There's been an increased pressure on our town and our community as the university continues to expand. More and more students are living off campus. Nothing necessarily wrong with that. Students need a place to live. However, what we need to make sure is that these students are aware of our local ordinances and that our landlords particularly work with the university so that we have a cohesive relationship with the students. There's families in these quiet neighborhoods that work. They get up at 5 in the morning. I get up at 5 in the morning, and I certainly don't want a party going on next to me at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. So these conversations need to happen. I think they most effectively need to happen with our neighborhoods. I think there's some individuals within our community who are taking the right steps to reach out to our town and our landlords, but a balance needs to be happening. So we need to make sure that the students are aware of the policies within the community, but they can still have an enjoyable quality of life here in the town of Mansfield.
Thank you, Representative Haddad.
Yeah, I think it's a big problem and it needs attention. As the university has grown, the pressure on our neighborhoods has grown as well. And so more and more out-of-town landlords are purchasing townhomes and single-family neighborhoods and converting them to student rentals. We need a plan, and I think it starts with talking to the university. They've certainly been increasing their number of dormitories on campus, but I think probably not aggressively enough. I'd like to see them put a project that they just put on the back burner, an honors house dormitory in their South Campus back on the drawing table. Because I think that as we try to get more and more productivity out of the university, we will undoubtedly have additional students. I also think that we can address this issue on a statewide basis by encouraging the university to do more with their regional campuses. We're investing a lot of money in Hartford and in every point in Stanford. For the first time ever, the Board of Trustees has started to allow housing to be built at our regional campuses. And I think that that's an opportunity for us in Mansfield, something to support, where we can get additional graduates out of the University of Connecticut without having that burden be placed almost exclusively on tourists.
Thank you.
So here's the problem that we're running into, though, is that these are conversations that I should have had 5, 10 years ago. We're kind of playing catch-up now within the town where the university is now expanding exponentially. And now it's like, oh, all of a sudden there's a problem, so we should have these conversations. These conversations, like I said, should have happened long ago. Already on the town council, we sent a strong message to the university saying that we did not support the idea of removing these developments of residential housing on campus. And that was a missed opportunity by the university. They could have prioritized their spending to provide housing for students on UConn. The college experience is so important for individuals during the ages of 18 to 23 years old. You're on a college campus, you're meeting your friends, you're meeting your administrators, your instructors. Being able to walk down the street for 5 minutes as opposed to hopping in a car, driving 10, 20 minutes, there's a substantial difference. So I think we really missed an opportunity. And if I were in the state legislature, I would be pressing hard with the institution of University of Connecticut to make sure that they take the right steps to provide adequate housing for UConn students.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to the next question, which is going to Representative Haddad and Myla.
According to Forbes, many college graduates and small businesses leave Connecticut and move to other states so that it is easier for them to start and continue their business. What will you do as a legislator to encourage new businesses to locate in Connecticut? What plans do you have to support Connecticut's current small employers to keep them from leaving?
That's a great question. Most of the job growth that we will experience in the state of Connecticut will come from small employers. And we need to do everything we can to support them. We need to continue to do our Small Business Express program. Right now, the Department of Economic and Community Development has a program that's really just for small businesses, offering small grants to businesses that are ready to expand or retain jobs in Connecticut. We've also have a Step Up program, which is training programs that are run through our community colleges to provide training to small businesses that need have additional staff training for their employees. These are great partnerships with small businesses to ensure that they get what they need in order to grow. This past year, we passed Senate Bill 1, which is a bill that begins to create innovation clusters around the state of Connecticut. And we were just awarded in this region a planning grant so that we can bring together small businesses with our academic institutions and with our local municipalities and planning offices to figure out how we can make ourselves very conducive to business growth around the country, and in particular to encourage innovation and entrepreneurship. These are innovative programs. We certainly do have a brain drain. Increasingly, students are interested in young urban professionals are interested in an urban environment. And with Hartford and New Haven, we have a little bit of that, but nothing on the likes of New York and Boston. So we need to do better to revitalize this.
Thank you.
Mr. Sargent.
I don't have to be the first one to tell you that Connecticut's economic situation is severely lacking. Consistently at the bottom of our states for economic development, job growth. We just saw 5,200 jobs leave the state of Connecticut last month. We're at the bottom of the barrel right now, and we need to take the right steps yesterday to fix our state. Anyone who's going to stand in front of you and say that we're going to create a bunch of jobs is lying to your face. As a public servant, your job isn't to create jobs, it's to create an environment so that jobs can bring to the state. So what does that mean? That means reducing our spending within the state. We had debt obligations of billions and billions of dollars. We've had a problem in Hartford. The Hartford machine has caused fiscal irresponsibility, and it's now impacting our sons, our daughters, and our elderly. We're seeing our parents and our grandparents leaving states to go to Florida, where the tax environment is so much more friendly. We're seeing students, University of Connecticut's in our town, and yet people are going to New York, Boston, South Carolina, Texas, because the jobs are readily available for those people. So we missed the boat on a lot of those students because we didn't prioritize our spending. We need to focus back on how we can create a conducive, healthy job environment here in the town of Mansfield. And when we talk about small businesses, that doesn't mean giving bailout plans to big corporations like Sikorsky. Sikorsky is a great institution, but we're spending millions and millions of taxpayer dollars to keep one company here. That's not fiscal responsibility. What we need to do is promote our small businesses here in the town, and as your state legislature, I will make sure, and I'll make it my duty to bring more jobs to the state of Connecticut.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
I appreciate Mark's concern for big businesses, but let me say this. The Sikorsky deal was an expensive deal, no doubt, and it was one that I regret having to vote for. But in states across the country, large economic development packages for big businesses have become a matter of course. We didn't give it to a big company. We gave that money to save 8,000 jobs in the state of Connecticut. And those 8,000 jobs combined with the 8,000 jobs that we're going to be seeing out of United Technologies and the 15,000 jobs that are going to be growing down at Connecticut Post, I think will improve our economy significantly in Connecticut. They will, in turn to their supply chain, small businesses in Connecticut that will be servicing these larger corporations as we begin to bring advanced manufacturing back to Connecticut. It's a real resurgence, and it's very helpful.
Thank you.
Well, it's a problem when we're picking winners and losers here in the state. It's setting a bad precedent for our jobs. What does that tell the other business owners? So that means that person gets a nice tax incentive, like my business gets to fail. And all the while, that corporation has the lobbyists, the lawyers to pay for all the problems and the regulations because they have the dollars to cash that out, and yet the small business owners are crushed because these regulations don't provide a conducive environment. So I think what we need to do is take the right steps, starting now, to make sure that our businesses can grow without picking winners and losers. Have an even playing field. Big government and big business go hand in hand, and I think we're taking the wrong steps in the Hartford legislature.
Thank you. Next question, Ozzy's going to ask, and it goes to Mr. Sargent.
Connecticut is among the top most indebted states in the country. According to a report from the Pew Research Center, in 2013, Connecticut owed $25.3 billion to its state employee and teacher pensions, $22.6 billion to its retiree health care program, and $19.6 billion in bonded debt. What do you believe should be done to keep the debt under control and or decrease it?
That's a serious issue that we're seeing here in the state of Connecticut. We're seeing more and more of the can being kicked down the road. We're seeing the party that's been in power for way too long here in Hartford just increase the debt obligations and not reduce our debt service. And that's an injustice to the people and the taxpayers of the state of Connecticut. A nonpartisan analysis just released that $78 million deficit in this most recent budget. So even though they were session after session, even now there's still a deficit for this existing fiscal year. And now there's projections of $1.2 billion in deficits for the upcoming years. Folks, this is simply unsustainable. It's only going to get worse if we continue to do the same thing and electing the same people who want to kick the can down the road and have no long-term solutions. So what we can do is work with our unions and have a good, honest conversation. Some concessions need to be made. with our current employees. We have to transition from our defined benefit plans to defined contribution plans, and taking the right steps. Pension plans are something that is weighing out specifically within the private sector, and I think the public sector needs to do a service to its taxpayer dollars and take the right steps to make sure that our children are not indebted with the mishaps of our current days.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
Yes, it's a very serious issue, and it's a very important question. The state of Connecticut, from 1930 to 1984, didn't set aside money to pay for pension benefits for our state employees. That was a 70-year period of time when we didn't fully fund our pension program. Since Governor Malloy came into office, the same year I did, we've begun to make our pension plans fully funded. And in fact, if we weren't to be making the payments into our unfunded pension liability that we are making now to catch up in the next 20 years, then we would not have a budget that was $1 billion out of whack. Those pension payments amount to $1 billion a year. So, look, I wasn't the guy who created this problem. That happened for decades before, and frankly, responsibility belongs to both parties. Mark might not have remembered that we had 20-year stretch of Republican governors in Connecticut. But the bottom line is, I was the one who was under eviction. That's what we're doing. We're not kicking the can down the road. We're making our payments, and that is why we have been struggling to make our budget work more recently. We have been making the tough choices, and they are difficult choices as we go. To make sure that our systems are in place and our budgets are balanced. It takes somebody with your values to make those decisions in a way that you would make them.
Thank you.
I think what the people in this audience value are not spending more than what you bring in. And that's the exact opposite of what's going on in Hartford. And it's been going on year after year after year. I may not have been here 20 years ago, but our legislature's been controlled by the Democrats for over that time. And the problem's only gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. So what actions have we taken in the past 6 to 8 years to fix this problem? It's gotten worse. We actually reduced we actually underfunded our debt service in this most recent legislature session. So to say one thing and do another, I think, is dishonest to the people of the state of Connecticut and the people in this audience.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what, the budget this year is 1% lower than it was last year, real dollars. We're not talking about cuts in growth, spending, or anything like that. We're talking about making really difficult decisions that as our debt service and our pension obligations are consuming a greater part of what we have available to us in Hartford, that we've been making very, very difficult decisions to make budget cuts. I don't want to cut more than we need to keep us on track. We're $77 million out of whack right now. We will address that when we return. It's not clear that that'll be the situation at the end of the year. But we'll make those decisions as we go.
Thank you. The next question, Juliana will be asking, and it will go to Representative Mack.
As of 2015, 1 in 7 people who live in Connecticut is an immigrant or someone who wasn't born in the U.S. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, about 17 to 18% of Connecticut's workforce is comprised of immigrants. What lengths would you go to improve life for immigrants in Connecticut, if any at all, and do you think immigration is necessary for growth in our state?
Well, yes, the answer is immigration is necessary for growth in our state. One of our biggest problems that you identified was that our population is down, and I think immigration can help, at least in part, to turn that around. We have a very high quality of life. We're a very desirable state. We've got good jobs available right now in advanced manufacturing that require only a year-long certificate to sort of be qualified today. We've got businesses who are hiring, and I think that our immigrants who might want to locate in Connecticut can certainly come here and become great tax-paying citizens. There are some specific things that we can do in the short term to help make life easier for folks, both documented and undocumented citizens. We can make sure that in-state tuition, as we've already done, is available to students regardless of their immigration status, if they were born elsewhere but have lived here and graduated from a Connecticut high school. And we can do a little bit better than that. We can make sure that we open up our institutional aid to those students as well. They are already part of our community, and they are a contributing part of our community. If we want to make sure that they stay here and are part of our solutions that we need, then we should make sure that they're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Sargent?
I think our immigration process is very antiquated and inefficient right now. We're seeing individuals, whether they come from Latin America, or they come from Europe, or they come from Asia, the process is very cumbersome for these individuals, especially who want to fulfill the American dream. Our grandparents and our great-grandparents came to this country seeking a better opportunity for jobs and for a place to raise a family and start a new life. And what we're seeing across the country is a conversation of legal and illegal immigration that is something as a compassionate conservative, I want to make sure that we have a process so that people can get here legally and have an opportunity to get jobs, because that's something certainly that is lacking here in the state of Connecticut. So I think we can actually foster a healthy relationship with our immigrants in the state of Connecticut, so that we can create competition. Anyone who can present new ideas, new growth, new opportunities in the state, I certainly welcome. I just want to make sure that our process stands consistent with our rule of law.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
Yes. I would just say, on a personal level, my little family history. My mom's side dates back to 1640, moving to Massachusetts. In fact, my 10th great grandfather, I'm proud to say, helped found Chatham, Massachusetts. I recently found it. But my father's side is sort of interesting. We've got immigration papers from my grandfather, not so much from my grandmother. The closeness that so many people in this room have to this issue is really important. We can listen closely to what people have to say and make compassionate choices to make sure that comes to stay.
Thank you. Would you like to begin? Okay. So our next question, and I think this is going to be the last question that we previously made, and that will start with Representative Haddad and Griffin. The death penalty was abolished in Connecticut in April of 2012 by a vote of 4-3 in the Connecticut Supreme Court in the case State v. Santiago. If elected as representative of District 54, do you support the court's decision to ban the death penalty, or should it be reinstated?
I don't think it should be reinstated. And legislatively, we followed up that court decision by passing the state statutes that enacted the death penalty. This is really an issue of conscience for me. I think that for so long as it is remotely possible for the state to make an error and put someone to death that doesn't deserve it. And frankly, we know that there are lots of people who serve in death row who have been exonerated for DNA evidence and other things, and I don't think that we should implement it. I think that has been a trend in this country recently. I think there are adequate punishments for folks who conduct and are responsible for the most heinous crimes, life imprisonment without possibility of parole, and that I think is the most reasonable way to sort of deal with these issues. So I don't support reinstituting that.
Thank you.
No,
Mr. Sargent?
so I will not take active measures to reinstate the death penalty. But what I do want to do in the state legislature is make sure that we are tough on crime. We had proposals put forth by our governor and the current party in power that would have allowed 77% of inmates who had 3 or more prior convictions to have a second chance. And these individuals are not your nonviolent offenders or individuals who got caught with illicit drug. These are individuals who committed heinous, horrible crimes in the state of Connecticut, and allowing these individuals back on our streets is not something that I would be supporting. So I will not take active measures to institute the death penalty, but I will make sure that what Governor Van Malloy has proposed, and certain individuals who are in power right now, does not make law.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, I think Mr. Sargent so overstates his case. Violent criminals are exempted from the second chance programs that we've put in place. And in fact, they are the same programs that are currently in place in many Republican red states like Texas. We spend an extraordinary amount of money to keep folks in jail when they pose no significant risk to the public. And in fact, what we see is that correction officers themselves can use the credits that they can earn for good behavior to make sure that they themselves are safe.
Thank you.
So I just want to say something that is bipartisan, obviously, is the war on drugs that we're seeing in the country. We're having this conversation with both Democrats and Republicans, and that's something that is something I'm sure State Representative and I agree on. The violent offenders are individuals who do deserve a second chance. However, the individuals that the governor and the Washington, the people who are in power right now, unfortunately, are talking about criminal, felony individuals. 60% of those have a felony charged against them. Those aren't non-violent individuals. Those are individuals who committed heinous acts. And that's not a conversation we're having. So this painting picture is not an accurate representation of my position.
Thank you. Now, so unfortunately, that's all we have time for the predetermined questions. Now we have questions that were emailed to us and audience questions that were asked before the debate has started. So we'll start off with Lila, and this question is going to Mr.
Eversource, formerly Connecticut Light and Power, is a private monopoly that owns an electrical distribution grid. While they, as a state-regulated company, are generous to politicians with campaign contributions, they are lousy for customers. There has been multiple power outages during the last decade, some of which have led to multiple schools in closure. And many neighbors have bought backup generators to deal with many outages. What do you plan to do about this private monopoly in company?
So, just full disclosure, my previous job, I actually was a contractor with Eversource within their transmission maintenance department. I think what we can do is focus on our infrastructure. What we have actually is a poor infrastructure system within the state of Connecticut. We actually import a lot of our electricity from Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and other bordering states because the individuals who were in charge 10, 20, 30 years ago didn't invest in the dollars that were necessary. So what we can do is take the right steps to expand our capacity within the existing pipelines that we have throughout the state and work towards even some variable rates. What we have in any scenario where we create one supplier is rates that are going to be higher. So I think increasing some kind of competition is definitely necessary, especially having conversations with Eversource, which is the primary provider of energy within the state. We also have to look towards renewable opportunities. And within the 21st century, we have solar, wind, nuclear energy that we could be looking towards that I think is beneficial for not only the town of Mansfield, but to a larger extent for the global community. Taking right steps, making sure that we have sustainable energy, but not removing all options off the table. I would not remove or penalize companies that use non-renewable energies because these people have a family to feed and they have homes to take care of. So I would want to make sure that we have all options on the table, making sure that we have the best interests and the safety and the health of our next generations in mind.
Thank you, Representative Haskins.
Energy is a big issue, and we've been working very hard at State Capitol to address it. We established a program to encourage folks to put solar panels on their roofs. We set a target of 30 megawatts by 2022. We've already exceeded that, so we went back to the drawing board and revised our estimates up to 100 megawatts. You only have to move energy long periods of long distances when the sources of the power are far away. And if we can create sources of power, clean, sustainable solar, wind, those micro hydro especially, like we're doing right down at the Kirby Mill, then we can significantly reduce the length of outages and the reliability of our electric supply. I think that that's something that we should get on with, frankly. And so there is something that I would rule out, and that is the increased use in Connecticut of fracked natural gas. It's a dangerous process. It's a dangerous process. It certainly puts money in pockets, but not in workers' pockets of the folks who are exposed to the risk. So I think that we should say no to that, and we should move on and get on to what should be a clean and more self-sufficient energy future.
Thank you.
Sure. So just with any scenario, nothing's better than the free market and providing more opportunities for companies, renewable energy companies, to come to the state of Connecticut and make jobs, so that it forces companies like Eversource to lower their prices. When you have a competitor who's going to offer you better quality energy for a lower price, what would stop you to move over to that company? Absolutely nothing. If it's going to save your dollars, why wouldn't you hop over there? So I think having an environment that will welcome jobs, and that comes back to tying back to our regulatory process and making it easier for these companies. We're actually seeing steps here in the town of Mansfield to actually promote solar panels on public buildings. And those, I think, are right steps, because those are municipal buildings, and that's setting an example for the state of Connecticut when we, as the town of Mansfield, promote these kind of opportunities. So I think taking those steps is important, but making sure that creating a marketplace that will allow these companies to compete will, in the end, save the taxpayer dollars.
Thank you, Representative.
If all of the costs of creating energy could be included in that price, then I think that might be a fair way to go. But we know that when we over-utilize fossil fuels, that we're creating additional burdens on the environment in the form of global warming. We know that frack gas causes incredible environmental harm in the communities that they're doing that as well. Those costs are not embedded in the cost of electricity. Those costs are borne by everyone, and not by the companies that are causing those issues. And so I think that the market is one that needs to be regulated, and that's how we create a more sustainable future.
Thank you. Our next question will be going to Representative Haddad. In March, North Carolina passed a law in schools that states that students must use the bathroom of their biological gender. Although, as of August, Charlotte Mecklenburg schools have been allowing transgender students to use the bathroom and locker room of choice due to a regulation passed. As most know, what bathroom a transgender person uses has been a huge conflict. Some people believe that transgender students should be able to choose which locker room or bathroom they would like to use, but many parents and faculty believe it is an invasion of others' privacy. Do you believe students should get a choice, and would you want to enforce any additional laws in public areas regarding the bathroom controversy?
I was going door to door, as I do a lot of my campaigns, and I met a student right here in Connecticut, lives in Mansfield, who has this problem at a school in Columbia, where she attends. And that's a serious issue. She has not been permitted to use the bathroom that ought to be available to that student. And I made a phone call to the administrators and asked them to revise their policy. I don't think that people of different genders really are all that interested in going into the bathroom of an opposite gender. I think that this is, especially with young people, attitudes are changing, and they're changing very rapidly. People are far more accepting of differences and of who they are. And I think that we need to make sure that our schools and our other public institutions keep up with the pace of the cultural change that is already occurring in our state and in our town.
Thank you.
I would agree. I think this is a cultural movement that is happening not only in the state of Connecticut, but throughout our country. I want to make sure that individuals have an opportunity to live the best potential without any of their freedoms being held. I want to make sure, though, however, that we strike a balance so that individuals who are cisgender, heterosexual cannot be having their rights also infringed by changing the laws in any way. I also want to make sure that if we are having gender-neutral bathrooms, that we do it in an area that's level on a playing field, so that we're not having heterosexual two heterosexual bathrooms and a cisgender bathroom. I think from even a financial standpoint, having two separate bathrooms just logically makes no sense. So if we're going to do that and make that transition, just have only gender neutral bathrooms and have one or two, as to opposed to spending lots and lots of more money just to add an additional bathroom. So I think from a financial standpoint, we have to be responsible about this. But it's also a cultural issue that we have to have with our sons and our daughters, and we individuals who feel comfortable with whatever pronoun they think is best, to make sure that we're at least understanding and accepting. Infringing the rights on anyone is not something that I support. And as a person who likes to be a champion of personal liberty, we have to make sure that we're accepting, but also not infringing the rights of those individuals who also feel like they are being impacted.
Thank you, Mr. Sargent. Would you like to respond? Do you have any? All right. So our next question is going to Representative Haddad.
How will you address the literacy gap in CT?
The literacy gap? Yeah, I think that the literacy, I'm not sure, in CT?
In Connecticut.
Look, I believe in a strong public school system. I think that what we need to do at all levels of education is make sure that we're adequately funding the services that are required. We're doing that, I think, in this coming session with an opportunity that was presented to us, I mentioned before, with judicial decision. We'll be looking at the way we fund our K-12 schools. I've always been a strong proponent of making sure that our colleges and universities have the funding that they require. I was part of the group of legislators that required the community colleges to overhaul the way they provide remedial education for both literacy and also mathematics skills, so that we're not disadvantaging students who come out of our K-12 system and aren't yet college ready. So I think there are a lot of different programs that we can do, but I think that we've got a great education system in Connecticut. It's one of the highest and most prestigious in the country. Our public schools are very highly ranked, and we should do everything we can do to ensure their continued success.
Thank you. Mr. Sargent?
I actually want to commend Representative Haddad for his efforts to improve our education system. Our education system in the state of Connecticut is one of the best in the country. But what we're seeing in the state is an increasing gap between some of our inner city areas or poor communities and then our more affluent communities. So we need to make sure that those individuals have an opportunity and focusing on those communities that know their towns best. Mansfield knows Mansfield better than anyone. Bridgeport knows Bridgeport better than anyone. So I don't think individuals in Marfa and the machine and the special interest that we see there can make a better decision to improve our literacy rates throughout the state. So we need to make sure that we continue to grow and make our education system the best that there is in the country. But we also need to trust the people and the local communities to make sure that they have the right values and the families within these communities to make the right decisions to make sure that their children are educated.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
Only just to say this, that I think that Mr. Sargent's his answer precludes what I think is what might be really necessary in order to close the achievement gap, which is regional cooperation. Bridgeport certainly has a lot of responsibilities to the student, but it can't meet those responsibilities exclusively without the help of its suburbs. And the same goes for Hartford and other district municipalities who don't have the tax base necessary to make the funding decision. Not to mention the racial isolation that occurs in schools and the way that we segregate our society.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, we're looking at tax bases, though. We're looking at areas like Hartford and Bridgeport, and they have the highest property taxes in the state, much higher than any other suburban area, and they still have pilot programs. So I don't think the regionalization issue is not something that we can continue to push. I think we need to understand it better. And like I said, I want to harp on the issue that the people in this room know what's best for their children better than anyone in Hartford. So I think your decision, and I'll trust you better with the taxpayer dollars and with your own dollars than someone who's a bureaucrat in Hartford.
Thank you, Mr. Sargent. We have come to the final part of the debate, which is the closing remarks for the candidates. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to make their final statements. and Mr. Sargent gets to go first.
A former president once said, "Promising too much is as cruel as caring too little." And what we're seeing time and time again in Hartford is we've been promised the sun, the moon, and the stars, and we keep being disappointed year after year. Our debt service continues to go up. Our families are leaving the state of Connecticut, and our children are going to better states for better job opportunities. What this conversation we had here on stage promotes democracy. But unfortunately, what we've had in Hartford is an undemocratic system. One party rule for 50 plus years silences the voices of so many people within our community. And what I hope to do is present your voice up in Hartford. Your voices who have been frustrated, who haven't seen the economic recovery of the crash of 2007 and 2008. The individuals whose pockets have only gotten shallower as their property taxes go up and their home values are continuing to go down. What we need is bold leadership in Hartford. Not someone who's going to rubber stamp with Governor Gamble what does and one of the institutions that are controlling this state. We need an individual who's going to fight for each and every one of you, and that's why I'm running. That is why I was endorsed by the Independent and the Republican Party going forward, because we need an independent voice up in Hartford. We need a new change, and that's why I'm so honored to be here, and I just want to thank each and every one of you, our moderators. Thank you so much, State Representative Haddad. I commend you for all your efforts up in Hartford, and I think what we can do together in this community, in the town of Mansfield, is take the right steps so that we're prepared for the 21st century. Thank you again so much.
I'd also like to thank all of the moderators and the students and staff here at U.S. Mint that helped put this debate together. It's been a nice evening to be able to talk about our respective ideas. I actually think that elections are about voters, not about candidates. I think that what you need to do is look at what your own values are as voters and try to find somebody who you think will sort of follow through on those values. What I've tried to do over my time as a representative and certainly before that as a town council is try to listen as closely as possible to the people in this community and find solutions that will work. Then I bring those solutions to Hartford and I work together on a bipartisan basis to advance solutions that will help address our challenges. I've got great friends on the other side of the aisle who we agree to disagree on some issues, but when we agree, we work together to make sure that we're achieving results. And ultimately, that's how we are all negative. I have been very privileged to serve as your state representative in the past 6 years. I hope that you will give me a vote of confidence again, but only do so if you think that my values match yours. If you think that I understand this community better than my friends here on the stage. If you think that the solutions that you think are common sense everyday answers are the same things that I stand for in Hartford. That's what I try to do. That's what I will continue to pledge to do as I bike across Mansfield and try to meet as many of you as I can at your homes. Please know that that is what I'm searching for. I'm searching for an understanding, a better understanding of what you would like in Hartford and what solutions we can achieve together. Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, that is all we have time for tonight. We'd like to thank all of you for joining us. We'd also like to thank those who work behind the scenes, the lead women voters, our teachers, and nurse representatives who put hours into working, into making flyers, banners, and creating questions and planning carefully to make sure this debate was possible. We cannot vote in this election, but the outcome affects us too, so we hope we've done our part to inform the residents of District 54 about their choices and candidates. We are thankful for our teachers who allowed us to take part in organizing this debate so we can participate in our community, and we hope that all of you will be voting on Tuesday, November 8th. I hope all of you have a wonderful night and have a safe drive.